coming straight from the underground. The young got it back cause I'm brown.
This is Eyewitness News.
Good evening, everyone. Area 4 police have charged 20-year-old Angelo Roberts with the attempted murder of Detective Clarence Longley. Longley was shot in the hand as he sat in the back of a police car last Saturday near the Henry Horner home.
Before Four Corner Hustlers leaders like LeBar Broman Spann waged a war of terror in the early 2000s against corrections officers in Cook County Jail, and before Angelo, Chief Lo Roberts, planned to buy a rocket launcher to blow up the 11th District Police Station in the mid-1990s, Walter Wheat, a 17-year-old unknown vice lord, co-founded the Four Corner Hustlers in 1968. The gang has a history of going to war against the police and each other. Founding members included Frederick King Freddie Gage, Marvin Shorty Evans, Richard Left Hand Goodman, and a psychopath named Monroe Money Banks. There was a time when the Four Corner Hustlers actually stood for four corners, representing a meager 6 square blocks on the west side of Chicago. The idea of the Four Corner Hustlers was about one thing: neighborhood protection, and that did not mean only protection for their members, but for everyone that lived in this territory. The territory was Madison Street on the north to Jackson Boulevard on the south, and from Independence on the east to Pulaski Road on the west, and all the street corners in between. Originally, the leader of the gang, Walter King Wheat, and his second in command, King Freddie Gage, enforced the strict say no to drugs policy. That meant no drug dealing or use, not even marijuana. Members were encouraged to beat down any rival gang members in their territory who destroyed the community with drugs to protect innocent civilians from violence, so crimes like muggings and home invasions were prohibited. Instead, members robbed stores, delivery trucks, and rival gang members for money. On February 14, 1972, Four Corner Hustlers and unknown Vice Lord gang members attended a Valentine's Day dance at 3906 Lexington Avenue, at the corner of Springfield and Lexington, where the Presentation Catholic Church was located. The dance was an invite-only situation, and Officer Henderson Arnold told everyone they must have a membership card to stay at the dance in the basement. 18-year-old Freddie Gage did not have an invitation, and Officer Arnold told him to leave. When he refused, a struggle happened between the officer and Gage that resulted in Arnold's gun firing off, which caused a bullet to hit Officer Arnold in his face. At the same time, Four Corner Hustler Leo Walker came up with his .22 caliber Derringer and started shooting at Officer Arnold. Officer Arnold survived but needed surgery to repair the damage. He was shot 3 times. So in 1972, the Four Corner Hustlers officially fired the first shots in their war against the police. Frederick King Freddie Gage was sentenced to 10 years in prison for attempted murder. In 1975, Walter Wheat was arrested for aggravated assault and sentenced to 10 years in prison. With their leaders locked up, the Four Corner Hustlers in the streets started selling drugs, quickly falling under the influence of another founding member, Monroe Money Banks, who did not hold the same altruistic values for the gang that King Wheat and King Freddie had, and did not follow their rules. Court records from Four Corner Hustler Ray Surge's 1981 appeal show that Monroe Money Banks was a sick-in-the-head pedophile, not a renegade gang member to be admired as an outlaw. The evidence discloses that at approximately 1 a.m. on November 17, 1975, Jay Starks was walking east on Chicago Avenue after purchasing an order of barbecue ribs to eat at home. While walking home, Starks noticed co-defendant Monroe Banks leaning against a car parked about 30 feet from the entrance to the barbecue restaurant. Shortly after he first saw Banks, he saw defendant Ray Surges leaning against a wall across from Banks and Philip Smith, who was further down the block. As Starks passed Banks and defendant, Banks stuck a gun in Starks' side. Banks then placed a cap over Starks' eyes, and Banks and defendant proceeded to walk down the street with Starks between them. Starks testified that while he was walking, someone went through his pockets and removed his wallet, money, and keys. Someone then asked Starks if he had any more money, and he said that he did not have any more. He was then told that the money which he had was not sufficient, and that he would be killed. Starks said that he might have money at home. Pause. Ladies and gentlemen, Please pay close attention because you never, and I mean never, bring danger to your doorstep, because I would rather die than let what happened next happen to anyone that I loved. Subsequently, Starks was placed in the trunk of a car and driven to within a block of his home. At the time Starks was removed from the trunk, Banks, Defendant, and Smith were present. These three accompanied Starks to his front door. At this time, the hat was removed from Starks' eyes. Starks then rang the doorbell and knocked on the front door to his home. Starks' 14-year-old daughter was awakened by the doorbell and went downstairs to open the door. She saw her father with three men, and she opened the door after about a minute. She then ran upstairs because she had been sleeping in her undergarments and returned to bed. Starks was led to the couch, where he was struck twice on the head with the gun by Banks. Starks still was wearing the hat when he was put on the couch. However, he testified that he could see from underneath the hat. Starks saw Banks go upstairs while Defendant remained in the hallway watching Starks. While upstairs, Banks took the family's food stamps from the wife. He also forced the daughter to perform a deviant sexual act, and he raped the daughter. Banks and the daughter then went downstairs where she saw her father on the couch and Philip Smith in the hallway. The daughter testified that she did not see Defendant at this time. Smith raped the daughter in the recreation room of the Starks' home, while Banks was upstairs forcing the wife to perform a deviant sexual act. Banks also attempted to rape the wife. Monroe Money Banks wasn't just a sexual deviant, he was a snitch that deserved to die. 2 days before the home invasion, sexual predator Monroe Banks acted as the lookout when McKinley Williams killed Earl Anderson on November 15, 1975. According to the Chicago Tribune, under questioning, Banks admitted being involved in the Anderson killing and named Williams as the gunman. Confronted with Banks' statement, Williams said he had killed Anderson in the apartment and that Banks had not been in the room at the time. But the two differed on key points. Williams said he had gone to Anderson's apartment to pawn a revolver, and the two got into a fight over the weapon. It discharged twice, accidentally, he said. Banks said he and Williams had planned to rob Anderson and that he stood watch as a lookout while Williams went inside. When Anderson resisted, Banks said he fled down an alley. On Wednesday, January 27, 1977, Judge Pincham decided Banks' statements constituted sufficient evidence that he had been involved in a felony, which resulted in death. The sexual predator/snitch was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Meanwhile, McKinley Williams, the nigga that actually pulled the trigger, beat the case up like Mike Tyson. In 1978, the leader of the Black Soul Street Gang, Wayne Edwards, aka Jack Bobo, wanted to expand his drug operation onto the corner of Madison and Pulaski, which was controlled by the Four Corner Hustlers. Instead of waging war on the streets, there was the creation of the 440-plus concept that united Four Corner Hustlers and Black Souls. Instead of waging war behind bars, the leaders of the Four Corner Hustlers joined the People's Alliance under the umbrella of the Almighty Vice Lord Nation when the People's and Folks Alliances were formed in 1978. In late October of 1983, King Freddie Gage was scheduled to be released from prison after his 10-year bid for the attempted murder of a Chicago police officer. The day before his release, he celebrated by drinking some jail liquor laced with some shit that ended up killing him. He died at 29 years old. Considering the timing of his death, I think it's fair to ask if the police killed him with murderous moonshine. Or did a member of his own gang who opposed King Freddie's laws against drug dealing like Monroe Money Banks set him up? On November 1, 1983, a massive funeral service was put together for King Freddie, which brought out 5,000 people. There was a massive line down Chicago Avenue that caused one lane of traffic to be blocked, and the police needed to direct traffic. The story made the front page in the Chicago Tribune. The funny thing is that the author of the article called Freddie Gage a conservative vice lord leader and did not even mention the Four Corner Hustlers. With that said, the first of the main founders of the Four Corner Hustlers, and the man who threw the first punch in their war against the police when he smacked the shit out of Officer Henderson Arnold, King Freddie, A.L. Malakodari Gage, was laid to rest in 1983. In 1985, Marvin Shorty Evans, retired from the gang life, found religion, and turned his life around, leaving just Walter, King Wheat, and Monroe Money Banks as original leaders of the organization, but both were in prison. Things would change in 1986. Both Walter Wheat and Monroe Banks were released from prison after getting locked up in 1975. As soon as Banks hit the streets, he found the Four Corner Hustlers were selling drugs and was loving the money that came with it. Banks would show them a higher level of drug dealing and make the Fours richer than ever. He set up a complex drug operation and expanded Four Corner Hustler territory into the northern part of the Austin neighborhood, which was the beginning of the true growth of the Four Corner Hustlers. Right away, drug profits began stacking up for the pedophile/snitch, and Monroe Banks was living up to his nickname Money. Sexual predator and rat, Monroe Banks created the black diamond symbol to represent the newfound profits and the new order. This was a hell of a come-up for the Fours, and this led to more violent behavior as killing over profits became more common. Walter Wheat was still king, but acted more as a figurehead than a leader, with Monroe Banks running the day-to-day operations. Walter Wheat was not a drug dealer. During the later 1980s, as the Four Corner Hustlers got more deeply embedded in the drug trade, it led to more violent crime convictions. The future leader of the Four Corner Hustlers and father to Walter Wheat's grandchild, Angelo Roberts, was one member that got caught up in a murder case alongside another Four Corner Hustler co-founder, Eugene Roiney. According to the court case of the People vs. Roiney, on January 24, 1988, Chicago police found the dead body of Stephen Edwards behind a Jewel grocery store located at 3552 West Grand Avenue in the West Humboldt Park neighborhood. It appeared Edwards had been kidnapped and tortured. Eugene Roiney told police that Edwards was a drug addict who had been accused by his girlfriend, Carolyn Lewis, of stealing from her, and she wanted him to leave her alone. That's when she went to him to help keep Edwards away. In another incident sometime later in the month, Edwards and another man were cooking cocaine and heroin in the basement when they broke out into an argument about how much drugs each of them would get. Eugene Roiney and Angelo Roberts said they came downstairs to break up the fight. Forensic experts testified that they found extensive evidence of repeated blows all over Edwards' body and found stab wounds in each lung. They also found evidence the man was tied up as he was beaten and stabbed. Roiney had said there was a party in the building, and he happened to hear the commotion downstairs and came to discipline Edwards. However, it was later confirmed there was no party that day. It then became conclusive that the murder was planned. Roiney was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. His violent past as a co-founder of the Four Corner Hustlers did not help his case either. He was previously convicted of murder in 1969. Eugene Roiney is still in prison serving a life sentence. For his part, Angelo Roberts wouldn't fully cooperate when interviewed by police, and he used his Fifth Amendment rights to not testify against Eugene Roiney to prove that Angelo Roberts was no snitch. Roberts also avoided convictions for trying to conceal a homicide and unlawful use of a weapon. As heard in our opener, Angelo Roberts was later suspected of shooting a police officer in 1990, but managed to dodge any convictions from that case too. The way he handled himself under pressure greatly enhanced his street reputation. Chief Lowe knew karate, and there are stories about him beating up 4 or 5 police officers at a time by himself. Sexual deviant and snitch, Monroe Money Banks was known to be ruthless and very serious about not letting competition get in his way. This led to increased gang wars into the very early 1990s. This also led to the death of Monroe Banks in August of 1991. According to the History Channel's show, Gangland, he was shot while watching a man try to get a cat down from a tree by a member of the Four Corner Hustlers' former allies, the Black Souls. This murder would of course further intensify gang wars on the west side between the Four Corner Hustlers and the Black Souls. After certified sexual predator Monroe Money A.L. Gunny Banks was killed, the throne was wide open, and Walter Wheat was about to make a power move. He appointed his soon-to-be son-in-law, Angelo, Chief Low Roberts, to be the new leader of the organization. Low was only 21 years old but wanted to expand the Four Corner Hustlers into a super gang. Angelo expanded the gang's territory and drug operation in 1991 when he brought a new faction of fours to the white and increasingly Hispanic neighborhood of Belmont Cragen. Two Puerto Rican gangbangers from Lockwood and Altgeld had joined the Four Corner Hustlers and asked Angelo to bless them with their own set in the neighborhood. Angelo granted Mousy and his cousin the request, and Lockwood and Altgeld Fours would now become Spanish Four Corner Hustlers. Mousy would run these Spanish Fours until he was put in Statesville prison. Under Chief Low, the Four Corner Hustlers also moved into the West Humboldt Park community. Four Corner Hustlers gained instant popularity with lofty titles like Universal 5-Star Elite, exotic-sounding Arabic nicknames, and grew roots into the community, establishing a permanent presence since 1991. Many West Humboldt Park Black and Hispanic youths loved the way certain Islamic teachings were preached to them by the Fours fresh from prison, making the Fours one of the larger gangs in West Humboldt Park. By the end of the year 1991, Angelo Chief Low Roberts was able to flip groups of other gangs, primarily Gangster Stones and Vice Lord groups, to convert to Four Corner Hustlers and established a complex crack cocaine operation in the Henry Horner Projects, Rockwell Gardens Projects, and Maplewood Courts Projects. The Four Corner Hustlers became one of the more powerful gangs in these buildings. Unlike Walter Wheat, Angelo Roberts was making money, so the Chicago police clamped down on him and did a major raid on his drug operation, which got Angelo locked up in the spring of 1994 until the reign of terror he unleashed upon his release in June 1994. Serving only a 3 or 4 month bid on major drug trafficking charges sounds crazy, but what happens next is even crazier and described in the court case United States versus Haney. After a bench trial, Mark Haney was convicted of conspiracy to possess illegal firearms, conspiracy to use firearms during the commission of drug trafficking crimes, and conspiracy to distribute cocaine. He appeals, arguing that the district court erred on 2 evidentiary issues. Haney is a member of the Four Corners Hustlers Street Gang, a group, according to the evidence, that operates on the west side of Chicago. In the spring of 1994, Angelo Roberts, one of the leaders of the gang, was convicted on state criminal charges and sent to the Illinois River Correctional Center in central Illinois. Apparently undeterred by his personal experience with the fact that crime does not pay, Roberts hatched a plan to purchase an arsenal of handguns and military-style weapons for his gang. He wanted the gang to be able to wipe out its competition and even talked about blowing up the 11th District Police Station because the police there were interfering with the hustlers' drug trade. Roberts contacted Darren Stacy Hardaway, who had previously supplied guns to the gang. Unbeknownst to Roberts, however, Hardaway had been arrested by agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in the interim and had agreed to cooperate in the ATF's efforts to nab his former customers. Hardaway visited Roberts in prison, and ATF agents listened in on their conversations and recorded them. In coded language, the 2 men discussed the purchase, and Roberts wrote out a list of the weapons he wanted. Roberts also said that his right-hand man, who, as luck would have it, turned out to be Haney, would do the deal on his behalf. Roberts said that Haney would transport the weapons using a U-Haul truck loaded with furniture and hide the weapons in the furniture. The next day, Roberts and Hardaway spoke by telephone, and again the ATF recorded the conversation. Hardaway suggested that the gang's payment for the weapons be half in cash and half in cocaine. Roberts agreed and said that gang member Sean Ivey would supply the money and drugs. After further phone negotiations with Hardaway, Roberts called Haney to give him the skinny on the deal. The Illinois correctional authorities recorded the call. Roberts told Haney to get a U-Haul and to staple it to the bottom of the furniture, and Haney agreed that he would. Roberts explained the terms of payment and the different types of weapons Haney would receive. Haney assented and showed his enthusiasm for the enterprise. "Yeah, then we'll be bad as a motherfucker too after we get the guns." A few weeks later, Haney called Hardaway to say he was going to grab on that merch and that he was fixing to grab everything that he said that you had. He closed by telling Hardaway that he was going to call Roberts and ask him again how many of each item he was supposed to purchase. A short time later, Roberts and Hardaway again spoke on the phone and agreed that the transaction would take place during the upcoming week. The deal was postponed for a time when Haney suffered his own bout of incarceration at the hands of the Illinois authorities. After Haney and Roberts were released and after further recorded haggling with Hardaway, the day of the big transaction finally arrived. But before we get to the day of the big bazooka gun transaction, let me tell you about the rumors surrounding Walter Wheat's daughter's baby daddy. After his return home from prison in June 1994, it is alleged that Angelo Roberts plotted the death of Four Corner Hustlers co-founder and king, Walter Wheat. On July 25, 1994, 43-year-old Walter Wheat was sitting in a 1982 Oldsmobile Regency, waiting for his friends to come back out, as they were in a clothing store on the 3800 block of West Chicago Avenue. As he sat there, a shirtless 17-year-old Bobby Cooley rode up on the car on a bicycle with a 9mm pistol and fired 2 shots. The leader of the Four Corner Hustlers was killed by a member of his own gang, and someone would have to be as blind as Stevie Wonder not to see that a young gang member wouldn't make a move like that unless Angelo Roberts had ordered the hit. In September 1994, Four Corner hustler Bobby Cooley was apprehended by police for the murder of Walter Wheat and charged with a double shooting on September 24, 1994, against 2 other Four Corner hustlers as well. Cooley is currently doing a life sentence for killing King Walter Al-Badi Hodari Wheat. Cold-blooded shit, right? Walter Wheat was called king, but was a sad, broken down, penniless, alcoholic gang leader that relied on his mom or aunt to provide a roof over his head when he wasn't in jail. Within a week of Angelo Roberts' release from prison in June 1994, Tony Davis, a former ally of his who ran drug operations in the Henry Horner homes, was gunned down. Chief Lowe's Lieutenant, Mark Haney, was one of 2 men charged with Davis's murder. Their plan to buy military-grade weapons, including a rocket launcher, called for Hardaway to meet the gang members in a parking lot where they would exchange the weapons for cash and drugs. But Roberts, who decided to personally oversee the deal, could not locate Ivy, who was supposed to supply the cash and cocaine for payment. Instead, Roberts drafted James Frazier, another gang member, to pay for the guns. Understandably cautious, Roberts and Frazier then recruited a 16-year-old boy to meet Hardaway with the drugs and money and tell him to drop off the guns at another location. ATF agents were waiting with Hardaway and arrested the boy. News of the arrest got back to Roberts and Frazier, and they vamoosed. Later they met with Haney, who assured Frazier that he would make sure Frazier was repaid for the drugs and money the ATF had seized. Frazier, Ivy, and Haney were eventually picked up and brought to trial. Roberts was murdered before he could be arrested. On January 16, 1995, at 1 a.m., the Chicago Police Department found the body of Angelo Roberts at 7009 South Vernon, right near the Park Manor Apartments, in the Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. He was found with his throat slashed in the back of a brown Chevy. Did the police kill Angelo? Did the older fours get back for Walter Wheat? No one has ever been charged for the murder of Angelo Chief Lowe Roberts. Cold-blooded shit, right?
I think they killed him 3 days before Christmas. It's approximately the 22nd of December because they let him call my grandmother and tell her that he died and hung up the phone. Hello? Hello?
I love you, Grandma.
Chicago police believe a suspect sought for allegedly plotting to blow up the Chicago police station is now the victim of a murder. Investigators have tentatively identified Angelo Roberts as the man found with his throat slit in a car trunk on the city's south side this morning. Roberts and other members of the Four Corner Hustlers street gang were indicted last October for allegedly trying to purchase automatic weapons from undercover federal agents. Those weapons included a rocket launcher, which, according to investigators, was to be fired at the Harrison District Police Station.
Thank you for allowing him to make that call to his grandmother. He had to have some kind of heart to do that. So I just want to thank you for that, because that meant a lot to him, that call, because she felt that whatever was happening to him or happened to him, that he was allowed to make that call, and it was happening to him, that he was at death's door then. So we'll probably never know, but I mean this from my heart. Thank you for that. I don't have any love for you, but I have some respect for you just for that.
Whose idea was it? Or tell me the mentality behind having Angelo buried in a coffin, standing up. Right. Okay, elaborate on that.
He was my prince. He was my nephew. All my kids that were born. No one would look down on any of my nephews or my sons. For wives, face look down on no one. Dead or alive. They were eye level with everyone. The king don't look down at the king, don't look down at the prince.
And so that's the mentality and the reason for Cassidy being in the position that it was in.
Yes.
Makes it more than one person killing. It's 5 8, so they shot 5 times and 5 different guns. So one person can't have 5 different guns.
Angelo's body was partially mummified when police recovered it in January 1995. It was in the trunk of a car, during Chicago's brutal winter, for several weeks before it was found. Chief Lowe was shot 5 times, and his throat was slit. So, miss me with that, no one looks down on a king, even in death, bullshit. Little black boys should not look up to broke-ass gangbangers like Walter Wheat, or pedophiles like Monroe Banks. Walter Wheat was not a king. Angelo Roberts was not a prince. Chief Lowe was 24 years old when he was murdered, and couldn't tell anybody anything, except misguided black boys like Bobby Cooley. Yeah, it's fuck the police, but fuck stupid gangbangers too. Backdooring niggas is not new shit, but killing your girlfriend's father, your mentor, and the person who put you in power is crazy. It's even crazier that Angelo's kidnappers allowed him to call his grandmother before killing him. This fact kind of confirms that it was members of Angelo's own gang who had love for him, until he had Walter Wheat killed, that ended his life. Whoever did it, the year is 1995, and the Four Corner Hustlers need new leadership. Ray Longstreet would assume the title of chief, and named his right-hand man, Shaky Sean, the founder of the Body Snatcher set of fours, the new prince, and our story is far from over. In 1997, LeBar, Bro-Man Span, renounced his rank as a 5-star Universal Elite member of the Gordy Boy faction of fours, and declared himself chief of an outlaw set called the Syndicate. So please, put some pressure on that like button and subscribe, to push this video to the top of the YouTube algorithm, because the Four Corner Hustlers continued to war with the police, and each other until Bro-Man's arrest in 2015, and we want to tell everyone all about it. In the conclusion of the Cartoon News Network's feature presentation, we'll discuss the exploits of the Body Snatcher Force, reveal the identity of the person who started the Gordy Boys, and detail the war that left Bro-Man paralyzed for life. But right now, let's listen to Walter Wheat's daughter speak her truth.
So, you are the daughter of Walter Wheat, correct?
Yeah.
Walter Wheat was the organizer of Four Corner Hustlers.
Yes.
According to the streets, people seem to believe, or according to other writings, that Lo kills your father. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
What part did Angelo play in this?
No part.
How did you handle the pressure of being the daughter of Walter Wheaton and having a baby by Angelo Roberts?
That's a good question.
Need a good answer.
I haven't really had no pressure. Nobody really never messed with me. Never came to me, never approached, thank God, never approached me about their lifestyle or what they did or what they would.